Hello everyone. Well, I was anticipating preparing for surgery this week, but my surgery's been postponed. I saw another doctor yesterday, and he says I cannot have shoulder surgery until I have an MRI on my hip. I've had trouble with my hip for many years, but it's gotten worse since I had the fall. So he says we're going to find out what's going on before I can have the shoulder surgery. So I don't know when all that's going to take place, but I'm going to work while I can. So today I'm going to start a series. I don't know if it'll probably be 3 or 4 videos, I would think, of showing you very, very basic information about how starting to can. I'm talking about somebody that's never canned before, maybe somebody that's never been around canning before. So today what I'm going to start out with is showing you the different kinds of canners, and I'll start out by saying that I don't have the electric canners. I bought one, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and it sat in the box. I never even pulled it out of the box. I ended up putting it back on eBay and selling it. And the reason that I did that is because I'm thinking, okay, if we have a grid down situation or, major power outages or whatever, I would not be able to use that without a generator anyway. And my pressure canner and my other canners, I could use them on my hot plates. Of course, I'd have to have electricity for that, but I can plug one of that into a hot plate. But I can also use some of these on a gas burner. I have a big 2-burner gas. It's just the burners that I can use outside, and so I could use it on them. And so what I want to start out with today is just to show you the different canners that I've got and talk to you a little bit about them and how you use them, what goes in each one, and that kind of stuff. So let me turn this around here and I'll show you what I'm starting out with. Okay, so the first thing that I have here is the steam canner that I've just recently gotten. You can see how pretty and shiny it is, and you'll see my next one is stainless, and it's not as shiny anymore, and they won't stay shiny. So the steam canner, let me open it up. You'll see that the plate on the inside starts to discolor too. That's going to happen with all of them. They're aluminum, and so that's going to happen. But when you use a steam canner, you can use this in place of a water bath. And with the steam canner, you're going to fill it up with water till it's on top of this plate. And then put your jars in it, put the lid back on it, and you'll see it's got a gauge on top of there. And I'll cover all of that using the steam canner. We'll cover that all by itself. I actually already have a video covering the steam canner that I will put. I'm going to set up a playlist for the basic, Canning 101 beginner canning, and I will add that to that playlist. But the next thing I want to show you is the water bath canner, and you can see it's a big canner, deep, much deeper than the pressure canner. It has, some of them come with this kind of a rack, or you can use the rack just like what's in the bottom of your pressure canner. I use either or sometimes, depends on what I'm doing. But let me show you something else that you can do. If you've got just a big stock pot that's not necessarily a canner, let me show you this. You can see here, I've set my quart jar on the bottom. Okay, and you can see there's probably about 3 to 4 inches above that jar to the top. Okay, you do not want to put your jars on the bottom of the pot because the heat will bust the bottom out of them. So if you don't have a water bath canner, then do this. These are just canning rings. Drop them all along the bottom like this. Okay, you can see what I'm doing there. Put them as close together as you can put them in the bottom of there. And then you can set your jars on top of them, and they will raise it up enough to get your jar off of the bottom. That will save you, if you've already got a big stock pot, that'll save you from going out and buying a water bath canner. Okay? Another thing, let me get these out of here so I can show you. The other thing that you can do is this right here. I've got a kitchen towel. You can just curl a kitchen towel in the bottom of it. Make sure your jars are on top of that towel. You could coil a rope in the bottom of it. Anything that will get your jars off of the bottom of the canner. You can also find these plates like this, or the rack like I have here. So this one, let me pull this up here, I'm doing this one-handed. That one will hang on the side so you can load it and then you can pick it up, you know, like that, and lower it into the water. You can buy just the rack or that plate to put in the bottom on Amazon or eBay, somewhere like that. So now, let me turn. So I want to turn this back around so I can talk to you about water bath canning and steam canning. Now, they're interchangeable with the exception of one thing. Some recipes, especially the old recipes, and this is not necessarily what I do, but I know a lot of people that water bath can everything. And when you do that, a lot of times it has to water bath for, 3 or 4 hours. Those are not necessarily recommended safe canning practices, but you do your research and learn what that is, what that's all about. But what I want to tell you is that water bath canning and the steam canning is for your high acid foods. Now, I'm talking anything that you add vinegar or lemon juice, some kind of acid that you add to the food. I'm talking like pickles, pickled beets, salsa, things like that. Also, your jams and jellies and stuff like that you might add. Some of them are acidic enough, but your recipe might call for some lemon juice. If your recipe calls for some kind of acid, then it can be water bathed or steam canned. But now there is a limit on the steam canner. If you're going to steam can something, make sure that the time in the canner is less than 45 minutes because you don't want it to boil dry. And when you're steam canning or water bath canning, you need to keep that water boiling constantly. If it drops below boiling, then it's time to start your time all over again. So you don't want to run it till it runs dry. Now, another thing about water bath canning, a lot of people, I know that some of the Amish people do not cover the jars except up to the neck of the jar. And when I say the neck, I'm talking about up to right, like right underneath there. They don't put the water all the way above the top. The latest canning practices say to cover the whole jar, lid and all. And so, there again, I'm not going to tell you what to do in your house. So just wait until the water bath canner and the steam canner are back to boiling before you start your time. And then just follow the recipe for the remainder of the time and you'll have it right. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is talk to you about pressure canning. Now, through the years, I have used a Miro, I've used Presto, and probably a few others that I don't remember the name of. But several years ago, I decided to go ahead and buy the All-American canners. And I'm so glad I did, because with the amount of canning that I do, just replacing rubber gaskets all the time, it saves me a lot of money. However, I want to say this. To those of you who do not have an All-American, make sure that you store your canner in a place where they're not extremes of temperatures. Because I'm going to share with you something that I had happen. I had stored my canner. It was a Presto, I think. I had stored it in my utility building where I store my jars. And so I brought it in, and I didn't check it. It hadn't been that long since I had used it. I brought it in, I loaded it up with jars of food, and I walked into the other room, and I was just about to walk back into my kitchen, and the gauge, which was seated in a little tiny rubber gasket, popped out of that thing, and it hit the ceiling. Scared me to death. I got no lies to tell you. It scared me. But I will say this. I opened that canner. There was not one jar broken. All it did was release the steam through the hole where the gauge was at. And so I say that because now my All-American canner does not have any kind of rubber gaskets on it. But almost all, if not all, of the other kinds of canners will have some kind of rubber gasket. And so you want to make sure you check those. Once that happened, I looked at it and I found that little rubber gasket was cracked all to pieces around it from where it had been in the heat. So, and another thing about your gaskets, if you go for a long time without using your canner, those gaskets can dry out a little bit. And there's a couple of things that you can do to help with that. One thing is run you some water, some warm water in your sink and submerge that rubber gasket in that warm water and just leave it for a couple of hours. And another thing that you can do is take a little bit of olive oil or something like that and just, don't grease it up, but run just a little bit of olive oil over it. I mean, a rubber gasket is made from oil. Rubber is made from crude oil. So anyway, put you a little bit of oil on that rubber gasket and then take a piece of paper towel and wipe it down real good. If it's beginning to dry out, that will be enough to keep it from getting dry. Another thing that I learned a long time ago that the rubber gaskets will begin to shrink a little bit and they won't fit across, along the edges of the canner. And I have literally wrapped stick my knee through it and pull it to stretch it back out. But I've done that many times before. So I just wanted to kind of cover that with you before I go on. Now, I do not have one of the other kinds of canners now. All I have is the All-American. I was thinking earlier, and I need to look, there may be an old one out in my storage building. And if there is, I will look and find it, and I will do a small video to show you all that. But with the All-American canner, let me turn this around so you can see. Okay, the first thing you'll notice with the All-American canner is all of the stuff on it, the gauge, the jiggler or the weight, and the locks. And this literally, there's 6 or 7 or maybe 8 of these on there. It will literally lock that lid down. Now, the other thing that you will learn from this, you can see how that's made under there. Let's lay that down. There's no rubber on here at all. And what happens is that metal expands and contracts, okay? So before you put your lid on, let me move this off and I can show you. You can see right here, there's a little lip all the way around. And you'll want to take some olive oil or some kind of oil. I would not use a seed oil, but I would, you know, some real oil, bacon fat, whatever you've got, and just rub it a little bit around, all the way around that. The reason is because that lid, if you don't have some oil in there, can get stuck on there. You don't want that to happen. So the other thing, and you'll see here that this one has same kind of little plate as I had in my water bath canner. You can also see the discoloration. I've been using this for a lot of years now. So a lot of people have seen my pictures from whenever I first bought them new, and they were all shiny and everything. Don't expect that to last very long. Okay, especially if you can, like I do. Okay, so now, whenever you load this up, you'll see here, this one has, there's a mark right here and an arrow. Those have to line up. And then you start here and across, straight across from it, and tighten those down. And then go across that way and this way. You don't want to start and go all the way around it this way, because then, if you look right here, see right now, this one doesn't have but just a little bit of room, and there's a lot more over here. So you want that even. Once you have that done, then the process, and I'm going to turn this around. Okay, so the process for doing the pressure canner, and this is going to be true no matter what canner you use, is to put your food in there. If you're starting out with cold food, then you start your canner cold. That's true whether you're doing water bath or if you're doing pressure canning. And then, if you're starting with hot food and the jars are real hot, then you want to put, you know, don't put them in until that water's up to almost boiling. Okay, so once you've got your canner lid on, then you let it come up to the still. It starts steaming. Now, you can see, let me turn this back around. You can see right here, looks like there's a little stovepipe on there. And that literally is like a little stovepipe. It lets the steam vent out of the canner. And you want to let that steam escape the canner for 10 minutes. And once it's been 10 minutes, and it may take 10 or 15 minutes for it to start, the steam to start coming out of it good, and then another 10 minutes for it to steam, then you put your weight on. Now, I'm going to show you, I think you might be able to see here. Yeah, you can see my numbers are turning black, but you can see a 5, a 10, and a 15. Now, that has to do with your altitude. And you're going to need to know what the altitude is where you live. And you can go on the internet and do a search for your zip code altitude or your address altitude, and it will tell you exactly what your altitude is. Then you can use that to determine if you need to increase the water bath time, or if you need to, use 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 15 pounds of pressure. That's from the weight that you put on your pressure canner. And I'm going to say the majority of places in the United States are probably going to be close to 10 pounds. But if you live up in the mountains, you're going to be a lot higher than sea level and a lot higher than the people in the valleys. And so your pressure is going to be 15. And so that's how you're going to tell. And then, of course, your recipe for whatever you're canning is going to tell you how long you need to leave it in the pressure can. And there again, you do not start your time for that once you put the weight on. Like mine has both a weight and a gauge. Some canners only have a weight. Don't start your time, and I do this no matter what, even if I've got a gauge. If my weight is not jiggling, I'm not starting my time, because the gauges can get wrong, but that weight won't change. So start your time once that weight starts bouncing. If you got to do 20 minutes, then you set a timer for 20 minutes at that time. Now, the other thing, you may have to adjust the temperature, because when the weight starts bouncing around, sometimes it's like that. I'm good at that, aren't I? Okay, so if it's going real fast, then your temperature is too high. You need to start gradually lowering the temperature. Don't do it all at once, because you don't want siphoning from your jars. But gradually start decreasing the temperature until that weight bounces about, I'm going to say, between 7 and 10 times a minute. It might do, and then wait a few more minutes, or 15, 20 seconds, and so hopefully that will help you to understand how to do the canner. Now, the other thing about pressure canning, and this is also true of water bath canning or steam canning, when the time is up and you turn everything off, don't go pull your jars out right then. You need to let those jars sit there. I usually do about 10 or 15 minutes and just let them settle and the temperature start to drop a little bit. And then with my water bath and my steamer and my pressure canner, I go, let me turn this around here so you can see what I'm talking about. On my pressure canner, and take the locks off so I can show you, I will take this and just prop it up on the side just a bit so that a little bit of air can get into the canner. Same thing with the water bath. Just do something like that. You can see there's a little bit of a gap there. Let a little bit of air get into the canner so that it helps to cool it down just a little bit more. And then I will usually let it be like that for about 10 to 15 minutes at least. Depends on how busy I am that day and how much I'm trying to get done. But if you take them out too soon and set them out on a towel, you're going to sometimes, depending on what you're canning, you are going to have food spewing around the jar lids. And when that happens, lots of times that jar is not going to seal. So anyway, I hope that this explains it about the difference between the canners. And I will be coming back and show y'all one by one how to do each one. And then after that, we'll do, it may be a little while because I know I'm going to have at least one surgery. So, but I will show you, or either I'll either do a video or I'll go back and look at some of my videos and pull them into the playlist so that you can see exactly how to do each canner. And be sure and watch all the videos all the way through. If you need to take a note, get a notebook and write notes, watch them more than one time, because the more you hear it, and especially when you write things down, that's when you're going to remember it. And I already have a video that shows a whole lot of canning equipment, and just because it's on my video does not mean that you absolutely have to have that piece of equipment. Just like whenever I was talking about the water bath, if you've got a stock pot, you've got a big enough pot to do water bath canning in. So if you question it, always send me a message and ask. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that I look at my comments every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And also I put an email address in the description underneath the videos. So, if you have questions, if you've got a canning project and you want somebody to walk you through it, you send me a message. I've done that many times before. I'm happy to help you. So, anyway, I'm going to end this one right now, and I'm looking forward to being back with y'all again real soon. God bless you.